All right, let's get started. This is a classified briefing on Anomaly SCP-8411. Pay close attention. What you're about to see is for authorized personnel only.
I want to start with a question, just something to frame what we're about to discuss. What if you were walking through the woods and the trees themselves were trying to warn you? Okay, so our focus today is SCP-8411. In simple terms, these are symbols that have been popping up all along the Appalachian mountain range. But, and this is important, they're only found on one specific kind of tree, the birch.
So, what is SCP-8411 exactly? Well, on paper, it's a collection of markings on trees. We've seen them carved into the bark, painted on, even drawn with charcoal. The variety in how they're made tells us this probably isn't the work of just one person. Think of it as a hidden system of trail markers, a language hiding in plain sight.
Now, we've classified this anomaly as safe, but let's be absolutely clear what that means in our line of work. Safe doesn't mean it's harmless, not at all. It just means the anomaly itself is predictable. We know how it behaves, and we know how to contain the symbols. The warnings they give, though, that's a whole other story. And this is where things start to get really strange. SCP-8411 has a mimetic component. You don't learn to read these symbols like a language. If you're the right kind of person, you just look at one and you get it. You understand what it means intuitively. But that's the key, isn't it? It only works for some people.
This selectivity is what makes SCP-8411 such a puzzle. These warnings aren't for just anyone who happens to be hiking by. And that, of course, leads to one very, very important question.
Right. If this is a language, a system of warnings hidden out in the open, then who is the intended audience? The first discovery was back in 1975, and we quickly realized that for most people, these symbols are just graffiti, nothing more. But for a few, the message comes through loud and clear.
We've started to figure out who can read them. And there is a definite and, frankly, concerning pattern. We're talking about mobile task force members, site security, our containment teams, basically people like us, people whose job it is to be aware, to see threats that others miss. It's almost as if the warnings are specifically for those who are already looking for danger. And there's another strange quirk. If you spend enough time around these symbols, eventually you can start to understand them too. So, let's get into what these symbols are actually telling us. We've compiled a catalog of their meanings, all based on the direct impressions from our receptive personnel. And what we found is a language that starts out simple, but it gets dark really fast. At first, the instances we cataloged seemed almost mundane. They looked a lot like standard trail markers, the kind you'd find on any public hiking path. Just simple, practical advice. I mean, look at these early ones. Safe zone, be alert, pretty standard stuff. There was even one for dangerous wildlife near that would give the observer a flash of what kind of animal to look out for. It all seemed normal. For a little while, we thought that's all this was, just a weird but helpful guide. But then we sent Mobile Task Force Gamma 89, our deep woods specialists, further in, way off the public trails. And that's when the messages started to change. They stopped being about the kinds of dangers you'd expect to find in a forest. They were about something else entirely. Just take a look at these. Someone vanished here. Do not search. Not be careful, but an explicit order not to look for them. Then there's ignore sounds. And this one, no one is calling your name. These aren't warnings about bears. These are rules for surviving a place that's actively trying to trick you. And it gets worse. Won't stay dead long. Something hears. And of course, something watches. And then there's this one, the last symbol we've been able to document and transcribe. It's not a warning. It's a name. Or maybe a title. She who sees through trees. We have absolutely no idea what that means, but it doesn't feel like a good thing. So what are we doing about all this? Well, given the potential for public panic and the frankly terrifying nature of these later messages, we have very strict containment protocols in place. Our procedure is a two-pronged approach. First, any symbol found on a public trail is to be destroyed on site, scratched out, painted over, whatever it takes to make the symbol unreadable. Second, any new symbols we discover, especially in remote areas, are to be carefully removed. We take the whole section of bark and transport it to Site 89-8 for study. We have to erase them from public view, but we also have to understand them.
So this brings us to our final assessment, and the honest truth is, we are left with far more questions than answers. You see, containing the symbols is one thing, but understanding what's really going on out there is something else entirely.
So, where does this leave us? Well, it leaves us with a hidden language written on trees for a very specific audience. A language that's warning us about things that shouldn't exist, things that watch from the shadows, things that mimic human voices, and things that don't stay dead.
We're left with two huge, critical questions. Who or what is carving these warnings into the trees? Are they helping us? And even more unsettling, who or what is she who sees through trees? That's what we need to figure out. This briefing is concluded.